The Red Mist Reckoning. Based on and inspired by the Doom 2 Total Conversion mod, Bikini Bottom Massacre. Prologue. Squidward Q Tentacles sat alone in the dim glow of his tiki hut on Conch Street, the termination notice from the Krusty Krab crumpled in his suction cup tentacles. The words blurred through his tears: incompetent, disruptive, unprofitable. Decades of endurance had finally shattered. SpongeBob's relentless cheer, Patrick's brainless laughter echoing through the walls at all hours, the endless disruptions to his clarinet practice and his solitary art, these had ground his soul into dust. No more. That night the house was silent for once. He fashioned a sturdy noose from thick kelp rope, looped it over the ceiling beam, and stepped onto a wobbly stool. At last, he whispered, his voice a broken clarinet note, peace. He kicked the stool away. Darkness rushed in. But the void was not empty. Something ancient uncoiled from the black depths, an eldritch squid entity of immense size, its tentacles vast as shipwrecks, eyes glowing with cold, amused intelligence. Its voice resonated like whale song distorted through crushing pressure. Your suffering has entertained us for so long, Squidward. The noise, the torment, the wasted potential. Embrace the red mist, destroy them all. In exchange, the silence you crave shall be yours, forever. A bargain sealed in the abyss. Power flooded back into his limbs. Squidward awoke on the floor of his hut, gasping. The wooden walls wept crimson droplets that shimmered like blood in water. His cherished paintings, once serene boats on calm seas, now showed vessels capsizing into gore. Outside the window, the familiar pineapple and rock houses stood under a haze of unnatural red fog rolling in from the trench. The air tasted metallic, thick with brine and rage. He rose, tentacles steady. A discarded bubble blower lay near the door, one of SpongeBob's old toys, now humming with dark energy. Squidward picked it up. It felt right. The rampage of Bikini Bottom had begun. Chapter 1. The Pineapple Reckoning Killing SpongeBob. Squidward Q Tentacles stood outside the towering pineapple house, the red mist swirling thickly around him like a living shroud of vengeance. The ancient entity's bargain still burned fresh in his mind from the abyss. The suicide, the noose, the colossal squid offering power in exchange for total annihilation. But the true beginning of his rampage, the spark that ignited everything, was not some distant street or abstract grudge. It was here, it was him. SpongeBob SquarePants, the source of every interruption, every shattered silence, every ruined moment of his miserable existence. The pineapple exterior, once a bright yellow symbol of relentless optimism, now pulsed with corruption. Its leaves drooped like dying tentacles, leaking viscous red sap that stained the sand below. The front door hung ajar, emitting a faint, distorted laugh that echoed like a broken record. I'm ready, I'm ready. Squidward's tentacles tightened around the bubble blower he had scavenged moments earlier from the warped remains of his own tiki hut. The weapon hummed with abyssal energy, weak but sufficient for this personal catharsis. No more delays. No more good mornings that destroyed his sleep. No more jellyfishing trips forced upon him under the guise of friendship. Today, the sponge would pay for decades of torment. He pushed open the door and stepped inside. The interior was a nightmare of distorted nostalgia. The familiar furniture, the pineapple-shaped chairs, the porthole windows, the little details SpongeBob had proudly shown off in happier times, now moved with unnatural life. Cabinets creaked open on their own, spilling corrupted bubble soap that bubbled with red mist. The floorboards groaned under his suction cups, sticky with ichor. SpongeBob, Squidward called out, his voice a low, resonant clarinet note cutting through the haze. Come out and face what you've created. From the upper levels came a gurgling response, twisted and demonic, yet unmistakably that same cheerful tone. Squidward, is that you, neighbor? I'm ready to play. The first corrupted minion lunged from the kitchen area, Gary the snail, enlarged to the size of a small boulder, his shell spiked with coral shards and eyes glowing crimson. Meow-ooah. The sound warped into a roar as he charged, tongue lashing like a whip coated in acidic slime. Squidward dodged with precision born of years, avoiding the snail's trail, firing a stream of bubbles into Gary's face. The pops exploded against the eye stalks, causing the creature to rear back in pain. He followed up with a second volley, circling around the massive shell and targeting the soft underbelly. Gary thrashed wildly, knocking over furniture that splintered into sharp projectiles. One piece grazed Squidward's side, drawing a thin line of blue blood, but the pain only fueled him. "You always left your slime everywhere," Squidward hissed, unloading the last of the blower's bubbles. Gary collapsed in a heap of twitching flesh and cracked shell, his final meow fading into silence. The first kill inside the pineapple felt intimate, a prelude to the main event. Squidward ascended the winding stairs carved into the pineapple's interior. Each step revealed more horrors, walls lined with photos of old adventures, jellyfishing with SpongeBob and Patrick, working at the Krusty Krab, now dripped red, the images warping to show blood-soaked versions of those memories. In one, SpongeBob's smile stretched impossibly wide, teeth sharpened. In another, Patrick devoured endless Krabby Patties, while Squidward's face screamed in the background. The red mist whispered approval. He was the loudest, the most persistent. End him and the silence begins. At the top level, in what had once been SpongeBob's cheerful bedroom, the true horror awaited. SpongeBob SquarePants hung suspended in the center of the room like a grotesque puppet, his yellow body stretched and distorted by the mist. Button eyes had replaced his usual sparkling ones, sewn crudely into the porous flesh. His limbs elongated like rubbery tentacles, twitching with unnatural energy. The smile remained, that eternal, infuriating smile, but now it split wider, revealing rows of jagged teeth. "Squidward," the creature exclaimed in a voice that layered SpongeBob's innocence with abyssal depth. "I'm ready, ready to make you smile forever." The boss fight erupted immediately. SpongeBob dropped from his suspension, bouncing across the room on elastic legs. He attacked with warped versions of his old habits, blowing massive corrosive bubbles that homed in on Squidward like guided missiles, flinging jellyfishing nets that sparked with electric red energy, and summoning robotic duplicates of himself that chattered, "I'm ready," in broken loops. Squidward rolled across the floor, using the room's layout, the bed, the dresser, the porthole window to his advantage. A corrosive bubble grazed his tentacle, burning like fire. He countered with the bubble blower, popping the duplicates one by one. Their yellow forms burst in satisfying sprays, filling the air with the scent of tainted pineapple. "Why won't you just be happy, Squidward?" SpongeBob taunted, stretching an arm across the room to slam him against the wall. The impact rattled Squidward's bones, but he fired point-blank into the extended limb. Bubbles exploded, severing the rubbery flesh in a gush of ichor. "All those years, I just wanted us to be friends." "Friends?" Squidward roared, his voice cracking with decades of pent-up fury. "You destroyed my life. Every morning, every laugh, every stupid game. You stole my art, my music, my peace." He found a hidden cache in the bedroom closet during a brief lull. An upgraded barnacle blaster prototype Mr. Krabs had apparently lent SpongeBob for security. The crab claw barrel felt perfect in his grip. The battle intensified. SpongeBob unleashed a barrage of stretching punches and bubble barrages. Squidward dodged with skilled precision, using vertical jumps onto furniture for height advantage. He blasted the barnacle blaster in close quarters, the thunderous shots tearing chunks from the sponge's body. Yellow porous flesh flew, revealing red mist swirling inside like corrupted blood. Flashbacks consumed Squidward between attacks. He remembered the exact day SpongeBob moved in, the cheerful introduction that marked the end of his solitude. The endless "Squidward, join us, please." The time SpongeBob had helped with his clarinet by blowing bubbles into the instrument, ruining a recital piece forever. Each memory landed harder than any physical blow. SpongeBob regenerated somewhat, his body reforming with mist energy, but the damage accumulated. "I'm sorry, Squidward. I never knew you hated it so much." The taunt sounded almost genuine for a split second, but then the demonic laugh returned. Squidward pressed the advantage. He lured the corrupted sponge into a corner near the porthole, where broken glass from shattered windows created hazards. Blaster shots pinned him, then a final, sustained barrage from the upgraded weapon caved in the chest. SpongeBob's button eyes cracked, his smile faltering. As the body slumped, the real catharsis hit. Squidward stood over the fallen form, tentacles trembling. "No more," he whispered. "No more laughter, no more noise." The pineapple house began to collapse around him as the mist recoiled from the kill. Beams cracked, walls split, leaking more red fluid. Squidward escaped through a bursting window, landing on the sand outside as the structure crumbled into ruins behind him. But this was only the spark. Killing SpongeBob had awakened the full rage. The entity's voice echoed louder now. "Well done, the bargain takes hold. Now silence them all." Conch Street lay ahead, but the rampage had truly started here with the death of his greatest tormentor. The red mist spread faster, drawn to the act like ink to paper. Bikini Bottom would never be the same. Squidward chambered the barnacle blaster and moved toward the rest of the town, the silence already tasting sweeter. Patrick's Rock was next, then the Krusty Krab, then everything. Chapter 2, Conch Street, the silence spreads. Squidward Q tentacles emerged from the collapsing ruins of the Pineapple House, blue blood trickling from a few shallow cuts along his tentacles. The structure groaned behind him like a dying beast, its yellow walls cracking and leaking thick red mist that blended with the haze already choking Bikini Bottom. The kill still burned fresh in his mind, the stretched limbs, the button eyes cracking under his blaster fire, SpongeBob's final distorted "I'm ready" fading into nothingness. Catharsis mixed with an eerie emptiness. The greatest source of his torment was gone, yet the bargain demanded more. The entity's voice slithered through his thoughts. One down, the silence hungers for the rest. He gripped the barnacle blaster tighter, its crabclaw barrel still warm from the fight. The weapon felt like an extension of his rage now, far superior to the crude bubble blower he had discarded amid the pineapple debris. The red mist swirled approvingly around him, thickening as if feeding on the death. It rolled outward from the ruined house, spreading toward Conch Street, the very road where his nightmare had lived for decades. The walk back was short but tense. The sandy path, once a mundane stretch he traversed with dread each day, now felt like a victory march through conquered territory. Palm trees along the route dripped heavier sap, their trunks pulsing faintly red. Distant groans echoed, more corrupted residents awakening to the mist's call. Squidward's suction cups left deep imprints in the sand, each step firmer than the last. Power from the abyss coursed stronger after SpongeBob's fall. Conch Street opened before him like a familiar stage set for his symphony of vengeance. The pastel houses that had boxed him in for years now bled color, their cheerful facades cracking under the mist's influence. His own tiki hut stood at the center, unchanged on the surface but radiating dark energy. The street was no longer quiet. Zombified neighbors, those background fish who had chattered endlessly about nothing, were emerging in greater numbers, drawn by the death of the sponge like moths to a bloody flame. Squidward raised the barnacle blaster. Let's begin where it all started. The first group charged from between two houses, a cluster of 5 infected fish, their bodies twisted with elongated fins and jaws stretched wide. They babbled in broken SpongeBob quotes, now laced with malice. "I'm ready to make you suffer like you made him." One lunged with a makeshift weapon, a snapped coral branch. Squidward fired the blaster. The shot was explosive, tearing through the leader's torso in a spray of yellow ichor and bone fragments. The recoil vibrated up his tentacles, a satisfying jolt that made him laugh bitterly. He sidestepped the coral's swing from the second attacker, using the wall of a nearby house for cover. Another blast at close range disintegrated the fish's upper body, painting the siding red. Red mist whispered encouragement, flooding him with flashbacks as he fought. He remembered walking this exact street every morning, only to be ambushed by SpongeBob's cheerful greeting. The laughter that followed had pierced his skull like needles. Now, as he blasted apart a third corrupted neighbor who resembled one of those morning annoyances, the memory fueled precise shots. He lured 2 more into a tight alley between homes, then unleashed a double blast that reduced them to twitching scraps. Progress through Conch Street was methodical, mirroring the careful navigation a skilled survivor would employ in hostile territory. Squidward hugged corners, used abandoned boats as temporary barricades, and exploited the street's layout, narrow paths that funneled enemies into kill zones. Near the small central square, with its once cheerful fountain, a larger horde gathered. At least a dozen zombified citizens shambled forward, some carrying crude weapons scavenged from the chaos. Broken clarinets, mocking his art, spatulas from the Krusty Krab, even Patrick's scattered ice cream wrappers turned into jagged projectiles. The battle here tested his limits. Squidward climbed onto the fountain's edge for elevation, the stone cool against his tentacles. From above, he picked off isolated threats with measured shots, conserving ammo where possible. A fish hurled a jagged shell, he ducked, the projectile shattering against the fountain. Countering, he blasted the thrower mid-motion, the buckshot spreading to catch two others in the spray. "You always filled this street with noise," Squidward shouted between shots, his voice rising into a clarinet-like wail. "Every day, every hour, chatter, laughter, stupidity. A particularly large infected fish, perhaps a former vendor, charged with a cart loaded with tainted goods." Squidward rolled off the fountain, landed smoothly, and fired upward into its underside. The explosion sent rotten merchandise flying like shrapnel. As the square cleared, he discovered his first major secret of this phase. A loose panel on his own tiki hut, something he had overlooked in all his years of residence, popped open when prodded. Inside lay extra shells for the barnacle blaster, bundled neatly, alongside a glowing rune stone pulsing with abyssal power. Touching it sent a wave of renewed strength through him. Wounds from the pineapple fight closed slightly, and his vision pierced the mist more effectively. The entity approved. The bargain deepens. Mori tools await the worthy. Emboldened, Squidward pressed deeper into the street. Flashbacks intensified with each kill. He recalled specific torments tied to locations here, the spot where SpongeBob had once organized an impromptu bubble party that ruined his outdoor painting session, the corner where Patrick had loudly practiced karate moves, smashing imaginary boards while disturbing his afternoon nap. Each memory manifested as fuel. A pack of 3 fish ambushed him near his mailbox. He countered by blasting the ground in front of them, creating a spray of sand and buckshot that blinded and shredded. The red mist grew denser toward the far end of Conch Street, where Patrick's Rock loomed like a massive tombstone. But before reaching it, Squidward encountered a mini-horde event. Infected jellyfish drifted in from the outskirts edge, their bells swollen and stingers trailing like whips. They combined with remaining street dwellers in a chaotic swarm. Squidward adapted. He used verticality, leaping onto rooftops of lower houses via stacked debris, and picked them apart. Blaster shots popped jellyfish bells in colorful explosions of stingers and mist. When a stinger grazed his side, burning like acid, he channeled the pain into fury, clearing the last group with a relentless barrage. The street fell into profound silence once more, broken only by the dripping sap and his own heavy breathing. Bodies carpeted Conch Street from end to end, dozens of former residents reduced to silent evidence of his rampage. Squidward paused at the boundary near his tiki hut, surveying the carnage. This was the place that had symbolized his imprisonment. Now it was his first true canvas of destruction following SpongeBob's death. The mist swirled thicker, carrying whispers of approval and promises. Yet the hollowness lingered at the edges of his satisfaction. Killing SpongeBob had been personal, the spark. Clearing Conch Street felt like erasing the backdrop. Patrick awaited in his rock, the brainless enabler who had amplified every annoyance with his stupidity. The entity urged him onward. The starfish is next. His snores will echo no more. Squidward reloaded the barnacle blaster with fresh shells from the secret cache. His tentacles no longer trembled with uncertainty. The power was settling in, turning decades of suppressed rage into something sharper, more artistic. He stepped toward Patrick's Rock, the red mist parting before him like a curtain rising on the next act. Along the way, smaller encounters tested him further. Lone stragglers, zombified fish who had hidden during the main fighting, lunged from shadows. Squidward dispatched them efficiently, each kill a note in his growing dirge. One particularly persistent creature, babbling about jellyfishing fun, received a point-blank blast that erased its head entirely. As he neared the massive rock, flashbacks of Patrick flooded him strongest. The pink star's endless naps that vibrated the ground, the stupid questions, the way he and SpongeBob had formed an unbreakable duo of idiocy that isolated Squidward further. "You enabled it all," Squidward muttered. "Now you join him in silence." The rock's surface was already corrupted, veins of red mist pulsing through its porous stone. An entrance had formed, a jagged opening like a wound. Squidward stood before it, blaster ready. Conch Street was conquered. The next chapter of the massacre awaited inside. The silence was spreading beautifully. Chapter 3, Patrick's Rock, The Star Falls. Squidward Q tentacles approached the massive rock that served as Patrick Starr's home, the barnacle blaster heavy and reassuring in his tentacles. The red mist clung to him like a second skin, thicker now after the cleansing of Conch Street. SpongeBob's death in the pineapple had been the spark, the personal catharsis that ignited the full bargain with the abyssal entity. Conch Street had been the stage where that spark spread. Now this grotesque boulder represented the next movement in his symphony of silence, eliminating the brainless enabler who had amplified every annoyance with his gluttonous, snoring idiocy. The rock loomed larger up close, its surface no longer the dull grey of Patrick's lazy domain. Veins of glowing red mist pulsed through cracks like infected arteries. The entrance was a jagged wound torn into the stone, dripping viscous fluid that smelled of spoiled ice cream and brine. Faint echoes drifted out, distorted snores mixed with the munching of endless Krabby Patties warped into hungry growls. Squidward paused at the threshold, letting the flashbacks wash over him. Patrick had never been the primary tormentor, but he was the perfect accomplice. The pink starfish's endless naps that shook the foundations of Squidward's tiki hut. The stupid questions at all hours. "Wanna get ice cream?" While SpongeBob laughed in the background. The way Patrick's rock would roll too close during adventures, crushing Squidward, carefully tended garden, or interrupting his clarinet practice with thunderous vibrations. "You were never innocent," Squidward muttered. "You enabled the noise." He stepped inside. The interior unfolded like a living nightmare of gluttony. Chambers carved from the rock's flesh pulsed with organic walls lined in half-eaten ice cream cones and static-filled televisions playing looped episodes of their old lives. The air was thick, humid, smelling of sugar rot and blood. The red mist swirled here in concentrated clouds, feeding on the corruption. The first enemies emerged almost immediately, corrupted starfish minions, smaller versions of Patrick spawned by the mist. They rolled toward him like pink boulders, their stubby arms flailing with jagged shell fragments. "Ice cream, blood cream," they gurgled. Squidward raised the barnacle blaster and fired. The crabclaw barrel roared, buckshot tearing through the lead minion in an explosion of pink flesh and shell shards. The recoil jolted his arms pleasantly. He sidestepped the rolling attack of the second, using the narrow chamber walls for cover, and delivered a point-blank blast that disintegrated its upper half. Ichor splattered the organic walls, mixing with the existing red veins. Deeper into the rock, the environment grew more treacherous. Slippery floors coated in melted ice cream created hazards. Squidward nearly lost balance once, but recovered with the enhanced agility the entity had granted him. Hidden bubble jets, remnants of Patrick's lazy inventions, now erupted unpredictably, launching corrosive bubbles or spawning more minions. A larger encounter awaited in the central cavern, a gluttonous chamber lined with massive TV screens showing distorted memories. Here, a horde of about 15 corrupted creatures gathered, starfish minions mixed with zombified fish that had wandered in from Conch Street. They attacked in waves, some throwing regenerating star-shaped projectiles, others charging with belly-flop slams that cracked the ground. Squidward fought with calculated precision. He climbed onto a raised platform of stacked junk food debris for elevation advantage, picking off distant threats with measured blaster shots. When a group closed in, he dropped down and used the slippery floors against them, luring charges that sent enemies sliding into each other. Blasts echoed through the chamber like thunderous percussion. Pink and yellow gore painted the walls in abstract patterns that, in a darker way, satisfied Squidward's artistic soul. "You always ate through everything," he shouted during a lull, blasting apart a minion mid-jump. "My peace, my time, my sanity, devoured without thought." The red mist fed him deeper flashbacks. One vivid memory, Patrick devouring an entire bag of kelp chips at 3 a.m., the crunching so loud it vibrated through the shared wall and ruined a rare moment of inspiration for a new painting. Another, the starfish's innocent but destructive help during a clarinet recital, clapping so hard he knocked over Squidward's music stand repeatedly. The horde thinned under his relentless assault. As the last minion fell, a secret revealed itself. A section of the organic wall pulsed brighter, a weak point. Squidward blasted it open, revealing a cache additional shells for the barnacle blaster, a health-restoring Krabby Patty infused with stabilizing mist energy, and a glowing rune that boosted his speed and strength further. The entity's voice approved. The starfish grows restless. Prepare. Squidward pressed on into the deeper tunnels. The rock's interior twisted like a living organism, chambers connecting through fleshy corridors. He encountered environmental traps, falling stalactites of hardened ice cream that impaled the unwary, and sections where the floor gave way into digestive pits filled with churning red mist. A sub-boss awaited in a wide arena chamber, a bloated, fused abomination of multiple starfish merged into a rolling behemoth. It charged with seismic force, creating shockwaves that knocked debris loose from the ceiling. Its attacks included hurling regenerating limbs as homing projectiles and a deafening roar that stunned movement temporarily. Squidward danced around the arena with growing mastery. He used the terrain, slippery patches for quick slides, elevated ledges for safe firing positions. Blaster shots chipped away at the creature's hide, pink flesh exploding in chunks. When it roared, he endured the stun and countered immediately after. The fight was grueling but rhythmic, like composing a complex piece under pressure. Each successful dodge and counter built his confidence. The behemoth finally collapsed in a heap, its body dissolving into red mist that flowed into Squidward, empowering him more. Deeper still, the true confrontation loomed. The final chamber was a throne of gluttony. Patrick Star, massively bloated from corrupted Krabby Patties, sat atop a pile of half-eaten food. His pink skin stretched taut over unnatural muscles, eyes glowing with vacant red hunger. The starfish had grown to twice his normal size, a titan of sloth turned rage. Squidward, the beast rumbled, voice layered with Patrick's stupidity and abyssal depth. Wanna get ice cream or die? The boss fight erupted. Patrick launched into seismic belly flops that created wide shockwaves, cracking the chamber floor and sending debris flying. He hurled regenerating star limbs as fast projectiles. His most dangerous attack was the infamous MY leg scream, a stunning sonic burst that froze movement and summoned additional minions. Squidward moved like a shadow in the chaos. He dodged the belly flops by leaping to higher ground on food piles, using their slippery surfaces for momentum. Blaster shots targeted weak points, the joints where limbs regenerated, the bloated belly. When Patrick screamed, Squidward endured the stun, then retaliated with sustained, fire-the-moment control returned. You enabled every laugh, Squidward roared between attacks. Every stupid game, every snore that shook my home, you made the torment louder. Flashbacks fueled his fury, Patrick's rock rolling during quiet afternoons, the endless, it's a Krabby Patty, celebrations that invaded his space. The battle raged for what felt like an eternity in the pulsing chamber. Patrick's regeneration slowed as damage accumulated, yellow ichor from earlier kills mixed with pink blood on the floor. Finally, Squidward found the opening. He lured a belly flop, dodged at the last second, and unloaded the barnacle blaster directly into the starfish's core while it was vulnerable. Patrick's massive form shuddered. Ice cream, later, he whimpered, the innocent tone cracking through the demonic overlay for one final moment. Then he collapsed, body dissolving into swirling red mist that absorbed into Squidward. The rock trembled as if grieving. Chambers began collapsing behind Squidward as he escaped through the entrance wound. Outside, the massive boulder cracked and crumbled partially, sealing Patrick's tomb. Two neighbors gone, the silence was deepening. Squidward stood amid the ruins, breathing heavily. The red mist celebrated, thickening around Conch Street and spreading further toward the Krusty Krab and outskirts. Power surged stronger, the entity's bargain fulfilling its promise step by bloody step. Yet the hollowness remained, a quiet note beneath the triumph. Maury remained, Mr. Krabs' greed, the town's endless background noise, the full annihilation demanded. Squidward reloaded his weapon and turned toward the next horizon. The massacre continued, each kill a verse in his eternal dirge. Chapter 4, The Krusty Krab Greed's Bloody Ledger. Squidward Q tentacles trudged away from the crumbling remains of Patrick's rock, the barnacle blaster still warm in his suction-cupped grasp. The red mist clung to him like an old friend now, thicker and more alive after 2 major kills. SpongeBob's death in the pineapple had ignited the rampage. Conch Street had spread the flames. Patrick's fall had deepened the silence, but the entity's bargain was far from complete. The ancient abyssal voice whispered constantly in the back of his mind, a low, resonant tone like a warped clarinet solo. Greed fueled the noise. End the crab. Claim his tainted empire. The path from the rock led naturally toward the Krusty Krab, its neon K sign flickering erratically in the distance like a dying heartbeat. The restaurant that had represented years of soul-crushing labor now stood as a grotesque monument under the spreading red mist. Its once bright yellow walls were streaked with crimson, the anchor emblem corroded and dripping. The parking lot was littered with abandoned boats and the first signs of fresh corruption, zombified fry cooks shambling aimlessly, their paper hats askew, spatulas clutched like weapons. Squidward approached with cold deliberation. This place held some of his deepest resentments. The endless shifts where Mr. Krabs had barked orders while pocketing every penny. The way SpongeBob's enthusiasm had turned even the greasiest tasks into torturous fun. The constant smell of oil and patties that clung to his clothes, ruining any chance of a peaceful evening with his art or music. No more minimum wage hell, he rasped aloud, his voice carrying across the lot. The front doors hung partially off their hinges. Squidward pushed through, the barnacle blaster raised. The interior was a slaughterhouse of distorted nostalgia. Tables were overturned, condiments spilled and mixed with blood. The register area where Mr. Krabs once counted coins with feverish greed now featured the crab's own corpse slumped behind it, overdosed on his experimental special sauce, tainted by the mist. His claws still clutched a handful of blood-stained coins, eyes wide in eternal avarice. But the crew had risen. The first wave attacked from the dining hall, zombified fry cooks, their white uniforms stained red, eyes glowing with hunger. They charged with extended spatula limbs that sparked with electric mist energy, chanting broken slogans, Krabby Patty, in blood. Squidward opened fire immediately. The barnacle blaster's roar filled the tight space, buckshot tearing through the lead cook's torso in a satisfying explosion of yellow flesh and fabric scraps. He moved with tactical grace, using the booth seating for cover as more emerged from the kitchen. A second blast caught 2 in a cluster, their bodies bursting apart and painting the walls in gore. The recoil vibrated through his tentacles like the bass notes of a vengeful symphony. Deeper into the restaurant, the environment turned treacherous. Conveyor belts that once carried patties now ran with corrupted grease that slowed movement and spawned small acidic bubbles. Falling fry baskets acted as traps, crashing down with crushing force. Squidward navigated carefully, his years of working these exact floors giving him intimate knowledge of the layout, every corner, every shortcut, every blind spot where Mr. Krabs had hidden to avoid actual labor. A larger encounter brewed in the main kitchen. At least 20 corrupted employees had gathered, drawn by the noise of his entry. Some wielded massive meat cleavers fused to their claws, others spat globs of boiling oil. Among them was a monstrous version of Pearl Krabs, bloated and pearl-like in form, but with jagged teeth and a voice that screeched demands for more money, more blood. Squidward climbed onto the main grill station for elevation, the metal still warm beneath him. From this vantage, he picked off distant threats with precise shots. The blasters spread devastating in the confined space. When the horde closed in, he dropped down and used the kitchen islands as barriers, luring groups into narrow aisles where his blasts created gruesome chain reactions. One cook's oil spit ignited on contact with a fallen comrade, creating pockets of flame that spread panic among the infected. The red mist fed him vivid flashbacks as the body count rose. He remembered every humiliating shift, Mr. Krabs docking his pay for excessive clarinet breaks, forcing him to flip patties while SpongeBob sang annoying songs. The time Krabs had made him work overtime during a clarinet recital night, ruining his one chance at artistic validation. Each memory sharpened his aim. "You hoarded everything," Squidward shouted, blasting Pearl's monstrous form as she charged. "Coin's time lives, now pay with your empire." A secret presented itself during a brief lull in the kitchen chaos. Behind the walk-in freezer door, a weak panel in the wall, hidden for years, popped open after a stray blast. Inside was a valuable cache, fresh shells for the barnacle blaster, several health-restoring patties infused with stabilizing mist, and an upgraded hash slinger, a revving spatula blade weapon that hummed with destructive energy. Squidward claimed the chainsaw-like tool eagerly, feeling its power resonate with his growing rage. The entity's approval washed over him, greed falls, the ledger balances in blood. The upgraded arsenal shone in the next wave. Squidward revved the hash slinger in close quarters, its spinning blade carving through 3 fry cooks in a spray of entrails and uniform shreds. The weapon felt artistic in its brutality, precise cuts like brushstrokes on a canvas of carnage. He alternated between the blaster for range and the slinger for melee, creating a deadly rhythm that cleared the kitchen efficiently. A mini-boss emerged in the manager's office, a giant robotic crab's claw, a remnant of the owner's paranoid security system now animated by the mist. The massive pincer slammed down in predictable but powerful patterns, crushing tables and creating shockwaves. Its secondary attacks included launching coin projectiles that exploded on impact. Squidward danced around the office with calculated movements, using the desk and filing cabinets for cover. He dodged the slams, waiting for the brief vulnerability windows after each attack. Blaster shots chipped away at the claw's joints, while hash slinger revs tore into exposed wiring when it overextended. The fight was intense, the confined space amplifying every sound, the metallic clang of pincers, the roar of his weapons, his own bitter laughter. "You always treated us like disposable labor," he yelled, unloading a final barrage into the claw's core. The mechanism exploded in a shower of sparks and red mist, collapsing in a heap of scrap. With the office cleared, Squidward reached the deepest part of the restaurant, the vault where Mr. Krabs had hoarded his treasures. The crab's corpse stirred faintly as he entered, reanimated partially by the mist into a final guardian form. Though weakened, Krabs attacked with greedy desperation, claw swipes that stole temporary health on hit, coin barrages, and desperate shouts about "my money." The confrontation was personal. Squidward circled the vault, using pillars for positioning. "All those years of pennies while I suffered," he snarled. Alternating blaster and slinger strikes. "You enabled the noise by keeping us trapped here," Krabs's final gurgles echoed as the last blast caved in his shell. Coins spilled across the floor, stained red and meaningless now. The Krusty Krab fell silent. Fires flickered in the kitchen from spilled grease. Bodies littered every room. Squidward stood amid the ruins, surveying his work. This place of endless drudgery was now a tomb. The red mist surged stronger, spreading outward toward Bargain Mart and the outskirts, as if celebrating the fall of greed. Yet the hollowness persisted beneath the triumph. 2 neighbors and their enablers gone, but the town still breathed corrupted life. More locations awaited, the supermarket of mindless consumption, the fields of buzzing annoyance. Squidward reloaded both weapons, the hash slinger revving softly in approval. He stepped out of the Krusty Krab into the thickening mist. The silence was expanding, note by bloody note, but the full orchestra of annihilation was only beginning. Chapter 5: Bargain Mart Aisles of Hollow Consumption. Squidward Q tentacles stepped out from the smoldering ruins of the Krusty Krab, the hash slinger still humming softly in one tentacle, while the barnacle blaster rested heavy in the other. The red mist wrapped around him like a victorious cloak, denser and more possessive after the fall of Mr. Krabs and his greedy empire. SpongeBob's death had been the personal ignition. Patrick's rock had silenced the enabler. Conch Street had erased the backdrop. The Krusty Krab had toppled the system that trapped him in endless labor. Yet the abyssal entity's bargain demanded total annihilation, and the whispers grew more insistent. Consumption feeds the noise. Empty the shelves. Silence the mindless buyers. The path through the thickening fog led toward Bargain Mart, the sprawling supermarket that had once represented another layer of Bikini Bottom's pointless existence. Its massive sign, usually bright and inviting with weekly deals, now flickered with corrupted red letters that dripped like blood. The parking lot was a graveyard of overturned shopping carts and abandoned boats, some still containing half-eaten groceries now rotting into mist-infused sludge. Squidward approached the automatic doors, which slid open with a warped, screeching sound like a dying cash register. The interior assaulted his senses immediately. The vast space, once filled with the chatter of bargain hunters and the beeps of scanners, was now a labyrinth of consumerist hell. Shelves leaned at unnatural angles, products spilled across the floors in colorful puddles mixed with ichor. Fluorescent lights buzzed erratically overhead, casting shifting shadows that made every aisle a potential ambush point. The air smelled of expired milk, cheap plastic, and the metallic tang of fresh blood. "Everything must go," Squidward muttered bitterly, echoing the store's old slogans with dark irony. He revved the hash slinger once, its spinning blade a promise of close-quarters artistry. The first corrupted shoppers emerged from the produce section. Zombified fish citizens, their bodies bloated from endless consumption, pushed shopping carts like battering rams or hurled canned goods as crude projectiles. Their eyes glowed with red hunger, mouths babbling distorted advertisements. "Buy one, get one," in blood. One particularly large specimen charged with a cart overloaded with tainted Krabby Patties. Squidward sidestepped the cart's momentum, using a display of stacked cereal boxes for cover. He fired the barnacle blaster, the buckshot ripping through the shopper's torso and sending the cart crashing into a pyramid of fruit that exploded in juicy red pulp. The hash slinger came next as two more closed in. He revved it high and carved through them in sweeping arcs, the blade slicing porous flesh and spilling guts across the linoleum floor like cheap merchandise. The red mist swirled thicker in the aisles, feeding him relentless flashbacks. He remembered every reluctant trip to this store, pushing a cart while SpongeBob bounced ahead, throwing unnecessary items into it with childlike glee, Patrick devouring samples loudly at the deli counter, the long checkout lines where idle chatter had grated on his nerves like sandpaper. "You all consumed without thought," he growled, blasting apart another group near the dairy aisle. "My time, my patience, my sanity." Progress through Bargain Mart was a war of attrition across themed sections. In the canned goods aisle, tight spacing favored the hash slinger. Squidward revved the weapon continuously, carving through waves of shoppers who flung tins like grenades. The impacts rang out like percussive notes, each kill a satisfying thump. When a shelf collapsed under the chaos, creating a barricade of rolling cans, he used it strategically, luring enemies into the debris before unloading blaster fire. A secret rewarded his exploration in the frozen foods section. A flickering cooler door, slightly ajar, revealed a hidden panel when blasted open. Inside was a cache of supplies, fresh ammunition for both weapons, several mist-infused energy drinks that restored his stamina, and a new runestone that enhanced his jumping ability and reaction time. The entity's voice purred approval. The bargain recognizes the consumer's end. Deeper power awaits. Emboldened, Squidward pressed into the central atrium where multiple aisles converged. Here, a major horde event unfolded. Nearly 30 corrupted shoppers and employees gathered, drawn by the growing noise. Some rode motorized scooters fused with mist energy, charging like mechanical bulls. Others formed human or fish chains, swinging linked shopping carts like wrecking balls. Squidward utilized the verticality of the space. He leaped onto a tall shelving unit using his enhanced jumps, raining blaster shots down from above. The spread of buckshot created devastating area denial, popping multiple targets in sprays of gore. When the horde adapted and began climbing, he dropped down and switched to the hash slinger, carving paths through the crowd in brutal melee dances. Blood and entrails coated the floor, making it slippery, but his improved agility turned the hazard into an advantage for quick slides and repositioning. Flashbacks intensified amid the slaughter. One vivid memory, standing in the long checkout line while SpongeBob chatted endlessly with the cashier about jellyfishing, his laughter echoing through the store and drawing unwanted attention. Patrick loudly crunching through a bag of chips right behind him. The sheer banality of it all had chipped away at his soul. Now, as he bisected a shopper mid-charge, those memories transformed into pure fuel. No more lines, no more chatter, no more pointless accumulation. The battle in the atrium lasted what felt like an eternity of rhythmic violence. Squidward's movements grew more fluid, a dark ballet of dodging, firing, and slashing. The hash slingers revving mixed with the blaster's thunder created a symphony only he could appreciate. By the end, the atrium floor was a slick canvas of red and yellow, bodies piled in artistic heaps of consumerism's fall. Deeper into the store, the bakery section presented new horrors. Corrupted bakers with rolling pins fused to their arms hurled explosive dough balls that burst into sticky, slowing traps. Squidward navigated the ovens, now spewing flames laced with mist, using precise timing to avoid burns while counterattacking. A sub-boss emerged here, a massive, bloated manager fish, armored in promotional vests and wielding a giant price gun that fired homing discount tags that exploded on contact. The fight was technical. Squidward used the conveyor belts of the bakery for mobility, dodging the price gun shots while chipping away at the manager's defenses with alternating weapons. When the creature overextended with a rolling pin slam, he closed in with the hash slinger for devastating close damage. The manager's final gurgles echoed with distorted sale announcements before dissolving into mist. As Squidward cleared the last aisles, he reached the electronics section. Here, televisions looped distorted episodes of old SpongeBob adventures, the screens crackling with red static. The final major encounter involved swarms of smaller corrupted drones, animated toys and gadgets possessed by the mist. He destroyed them methodically, the weapons singing in his grasp. A grand secret awaited in the manager's back office. Blasting open a reinforced safe revealed the ultimate find for this level, an upgraded jellyfish net launcher prototype, capable of capturing and redirecting small groups of enemies. Squidward claimed it eagerly, feeling the weapon's potential for chaining destruction. The entity's power surged again. Consumption ends here. The fields await. Bargain Mart fell into profound silence. Fires smoldered in various sections from spilled chemicals. Shelves lay toppled. The vast temple of mindless buying was now a tomb of hollow carts and silent registers. Squidward stood at the exit, surveying the carnage. Another pillar of Bikini Bottom's annoying normalcy reduced to blood and quiet. The red mist celebrated, spreading further toward jellyfish fields and the industrial zone. His arsenal had grown. His body felt stronger, more attuned to the abyss. Yet the familiar hollowness lingered beneath the satisfaction. The kills were meaningful, but the full silence of the town still called. Patrick and SpongeBob were gone. Krabs and his store of greed toppled. Now nature itself, the buzzing, cheerful fields, would pay. Squidward tested the new jellyfish net launcher on a lingering straggler outside the store. It worked flawlessly, ensnaring the fish and redirecting its own corrupted energy against itself. He allowed a rare, bitter smile. The massacre marched onward, aisle by bloody aisle. Chapter 6. Jellyfish Fields, Nature's Stinging Betrayal. Squidward Q tentacles emerged from the shattered automatic doors of Bargain Mart, the newly acquired jellyfish net launcher slung across his back alongside the barnacle blaster and hash slinger. The red mist embraced him like a devoted audience, swirling thicker and more vibrant after the supermarket's fall. SpongeBob's button-eyed death had sparked the rampage. Patrick's gluttonous collapse had silenced the enabler. The Krusty Krab had toppled greed. Bargain Mart had emptied the hollow consumption. Now the entity's ancient voice slithered deeper into his thoughts, a dissonant clarinet melody. Even nature joined their chorus. The buzzing, the swarms, silenced the fields. The path beyond the store opened into the vast expanse of jellyfish fields. What had once been a whimsical meadow of floating jellyfish, colorful coral, and gentle currents, a place SpongeBob had dragged him to countless times under the pretense of fun, was now a corrupted warzone under the blood-red sky. The grass-like seaweed swayed unnaturally, tipped with crimson droplets. Palm trees and coral formations pulsed with infected veins. Massive jellyfish drifted overhead, their bells swollen and glowing with malignant red energy, stingers trailing like whips of fire and lightning. The air hummed with a low, electric buzz that grated on Squidward's nerves exactly as it always had, but now it carried a promise of vengeance. He tested the jellyfish net launcher on a lone corrupted butterflyfish lingering near the entrance. The net shot forth, ensnaring the creature, then redirected its own corrupted energy back against it in a burst of stinging death. The fish dissolved in a satisfying pop of mist. Perfect, Squidward rasped. Turn their own annoyances against them. He advanced into the open meadows with methodical precision. The fields rewarded careful movement and awareness of verticality. Floating coral platforms bobbed on invisible thermals, bubble elevators rose and fell rhythmically, and tall seaweed provided temporary cover. The red mist, reduced visibility in patches, turning every drifting shadow into a potential threat. The first major swarm attacked near a cluster of glowing anemones. Dozens of infected jellyfish descended, their bells pulsing in unison like living lanterns of doom. Their stingers lashed out in wide arcs, leaving trails of burning venom that sizzled the sand below. Mixed among them were zombified lifeguards from Goo Lagoon, muscular fish wielding broken surfboards and carrying nets of their own. Squidward leaped onto the nearest floating platform, his enhanced agility from previous runes making the jump effortless. From this height, he unleashed the jellyfish net launcher. The net captured 3 jellyfish at once, then redirected their stingers downward into the lifeguards. Chain reactions bloomed, stings caused the fish to spasm and attack each other in confusion. He followed up with barnacle blaster shots, the buckshot popping bells in colorful explosions of glowing fluid and electricity. The battle was a dance of elevation and timing. Squidward jumped between platforms as stingers whipped past him. One grazed his side, sending burning pain through his tentacles, but he channeled it into fury. "You always buzzed at the worst moments," he shouted, his voice rising into a wail. "Every time I sought peace here, your endless swarms and SpongeBob's laughter ruined it." Flashbacks assaulted him between shots. SpongeBob excitedly pointing out rare jellyfish, while Patrick got strung repeatedly, their chaos forcing Squidward to endure hours of unwanted adventure. A secret revealed itself after clearing the initial swarm. Behind a large, cracked coral formation that resembled a broken moe head, a hidden bubble elevator led to an elevated ledge. There Squidward found a cache, extra nets and shells, several glowing jellyfish essence orbs that temporarily boosted his weapon damage, and another abyssal rune that improved his resistance to stinging venom. The entity's whisper carried satisfaction. Nature's weapons turn. The queen awaits. Deeper into the fields, the terrain opened into vast clearings with more vertical complexity. Massive jellyfish formed living clusters, their combined stingers creating barriers of electricity. Corrupted Larry, the lobster variants patrolled the ground level, their muscular bodies fused with coral armor and claws crackling with red energy. They charged with powerful punches and thrown dumbbells infused with mist. Squidward adapted his tactics. He used the net launcher to capture groups of jellyfish and redirect them into the Larry variants, causing infighting and massive area damage. The barnacle blaster handled grounded threats at range, while the hash slinger carved through any that closed the distance. His movements were fluid and increasingly artistic, dodging stingers with precise rolls, leaping to platforms for vantage points, and chaining attacks into devastating combos. The red mist thickened in the central meadow, projecting stronger visions. He relived every forced trip. SpongeBob, "Come on, Squidward, jellyfishing builds character," Patrick's loud complaints when strung. The buzzing that never stopped, mirroring the constant noise back home. Each memory landed like a physical blow, sharpening his aim. A pack of 5 Larry variants charged across a clearing. Squidward lured them under a cluster of jellyfish, netted the swarm, and redirected pure hell upon them. Their roars mixed with electric death cries in a symphony he finally appreciated. A major horde event tested him near the largest floating reef. Hundreds of jellyfish and ground enemies converged in waves. Squidward climbed the highest coral spire using successive bubble elevators, raining destruction from above. Nets created chain explosions of stingers. Blaster fire popped bells in rapid succession. When enemies climbed after him, the hash slinger sang in close quarters, carving limbs and tentacles in sweeping arcs. Sweat and blue blood mixed on his skin, but the power surging through him made the exertion exhilarating. In the heart of the field stood the jellyfish queen, a grotesque amalgamation of hundreds of jellyfish fused around a massively zombified Larry the lobster core. Her enormous bell pulsed with red light, tendrils lashing in wide, patterned attacks reminiscent of a conductor's baton gone mad. Stingers fired in salvos. Shockwaves of electricity rippled across the ground. She summoned smaller swarms as minions. The boss fight was epic in scale and demanded everything Squidward had learned. He used the surrounding vertical platforms to stay mobile, dodging sweeping tendrils by leaping between coral outcrops. The net launcher was key, capturing her own summoned jellyfish and redirecting them back into her core for massive damage. Barnacle blaster shots targeted the glowing weak points on her bell, while the hash slinger carved through tendrils that got too close. "You represent everything I hated about this place," Squidward roared during a vulnerability window, unloading sustained fire. The false beauty, the constant buzzing interruption, the way SpongeBob turned even nature into endless annoyance. The Queen's attacks grew more desperate, her stingers cracking platforms and filling the air with lethal energy. Squidward endured burns and shocks, his rune-enhanced resistance keeping him in the fight. After a grueling exchange of dodges, redirects, and volleys, he found the opening. A redirected super swarm struck her core while she recovered from a shockwave. The explosion was blinding, crimson light and electric fury that lit the entire fields. The Queen's form disintegrated in a shower of stingers and glowing mist that flowed into Squidward, granting him even greater power. The fields fell into an eerie quiet, drifting jellyfish bells dimmed, the buzzing faded. Bodies and dissolved remains littered the meadows like fallen notes in a finished composition. Squidward stood atop the highest platform, surveying the carnage. The red mist celebrated, spreading toward the industrial zone and glove world. His arsenal felt perfectly balanced now. The silence in the fields was profound, a temporary masterpiece of vengeance against nature's complicity. Yet the hollowness remained, a subtle undertone. Maury areas called, Maury annoyances to erase. The entity urged him forward. The carnival of false joy awaits. Continue the dirge. Squidward tested his enhanced abilities with a powerful net shot that cleared a lingering swarm in one go. He allowed himself another rare, bitter laugh that echoed across the quiet meadows. The massacre flowed onward, field by stinging field. Chapter 7: Industrial Zone, Forges of Polluted Rage. Squidward Q tentacles descended from the final coral spire of jellyfish fields, the jellyfish net launcher still crackling with residual energy on his back. The red mist surged around him with renewed hunger, thicker and almost affectionate after the Queen's explosive demise. SpongeBob's personal reckoning in the pineapple had lit the flame. Patrick's rock had crushed the enabler. The Krusty Krab had balanced greed's ledger in blood. Bargain Mart had emptied the aisles of mindless hunger. The fields had silenced nature's buzzing betrayal. Now the abyssal entity's voice resonated stronger, a grinding industrial chord beneath the clarinet wail. The machines of progress enabled their noise. Pollute the forges, break the engines of annoyance. The transition from the open meadows into the industrial zone was abrupt and suffocating. Towering factories and rusted pipelines rose like metal skeletons against the blood-red sky. Smokestacks belched thick clouds of red-tinged smog that mixed seamlessly with the mist. Conveyor belts groaned endlessly, carrying corrupted cargo, twisted metal scraps, bubbling vats of oily sludge, and the occasional severed limb from earlier victims. The ground vibrated with mechanical rhythm, a constant low hum that reminded Squidward painfully of the background noise he had endured for decades. He gripped his arsenal tighter, barnacle blaster for range, hash slinger for intimate carving, and the net launcher for chaotic redirection. No more mechanical interruptions, he muttered. No more factories churning out products for their pointless lives. The first enemies emerged from the shadows of a loading dock, corrupted construction fish, their bodies fused with welding masks and power tools. Their arms ended in spinning drills or jackhammers that sparked with mist electricity. They charged with guttural roars, swinging heavy pipes and throwing rivets like bullets. Build, the silence, in blood. Squidward opened with the net launcher, capturing a cluster of airborne debris drones that had been corrupted into floating sentries. He redirected them straight into the lead construction worker, causing a chain explosion of sparks and shredded metal. The barnacle blaster followed, buckshot tearing through the next attacker's torso in a spray of oil, blood, and gear fragments. He moved with practiced efficiency, using rusted shipping containers as cover while the hash slinger revved to life for any that closed distance. The spinning blade carved through a welder's mask and the face beneath it with surgical brutality. The industrial zone's layout favored verticality and environmental hazards. Catwalks crisscrossed overhead, some collapsing under weight. Molten metal vats bubbled dangerously below, ready to consume the unwary. Conveyor belts moved in unpredictable directions, carrying enemies or hazards toward crushing machinery. Squidward leaped onto the nearest catwalk using his enhanced agility, raining net launcher shots downward to redirect enemy groups into each other or into the vats. Flashbacks assaulted him relentlessly as the kills mounted. He remembered the distant roar of construction near Conch Street, endless hammering and drilling that ruined afternoon naps and clarinet sessions. The way SpongeBob had once helped with a community build project, turning it into a chaotic parade that blocked the entire road for days. Patrick snoring through the noise as if it were a lullaby. "You built nothing but irritation," Squidward snarled, blasting a jackhammer-wielding fish into a vat of molten slag. The scream that followed was brief and satisfying. A secret cache rewarded his exploration midway through the first factory building. Behind a weak section of rusted paneling, revealed after stray blaster shot, lay a maintenance hatch containing upgraded ammunition, mist-infused coolant rods that temporarily cooled weapon overheating, and a new abyssal rune that increased his resistance to fire and electrical damage. The entity's whisper carried dark approval. The machines break. Their progress ends in rust. Deeper into the zone, the encounters escalated. Entire assembly lines had come alive with corrupted machinery, robotic arms swinging like pendulums of death, conveyor traps that tried to drag him into grinders. Mixed with these were hordes of worker fish, their hard hats fused to skulls, tools now permanent extensions of their bodies. Squidward navigated the chaos with growing mastery, using the net launcher to turn enemy projectiles against their senders, the hash slinger for brutal close-quarters dismemberment on catwalks, and the barnacle blaster to explode key structural weak points that caused chain collapses. One particularly intense sequence occurred in the central foundry chamber. A massive horde of over 40 enemies converged around a central smelting pit. Squidward climbed a network of overhead pipes, balancing carefully as they creaked under his weight. From this vantage, he orchestrated destruction, netting groups of workers and redirecting them into swinging robotic arms, which in turn knocked others into the molten pit. The air filled with the sounds of screams, crashing metal, and his own bitter laughter echoing like a conductor's baton. The red mist projected stronger visions here. He saw himself trapped in this very zone during one of Mr. Krabs' cost-cutting schemes, forced to work overtime assembling useless gadgets while SpongeBob sang factory songs and Patrick ate all the break room snacks. The noise, the heat, the endless clanging, it had all contributed to his breaking point. Each kill now felt like poetic justice. A giant fused worker boss, a towering abomination with multiple tool arms, emerged from the pit. Its attacks included spinning drill barrages and ground-pound slams that sent shockwaves across the catwalks. Squidward fought with calculated precision. He used the multi-level terrain to stay mobile, dodging drills by swinging across pipes and countering with sustained net launcher redirects that overloaded the creature's own systems. The hash slinger carved through exposed joints during vulnerability windows. After a fierce exchange that left him singed and bleeding, he delivered the killing blow by luring the boss into a structural collapse, then finishing it with a point-blank blaster shot to the core. The explosion sent a shower of molten debris raining down, clearing the remaining horde. Further into the zone, the industrial area gave way to connected warehouses filled with stacked crates and forklift drones gone rogue. Squidward cleared these methodically, the weapons singing in harmony. Secrets continued to appear, one hidden in a foreman's office behind a fake safety poster, granting even stronger rune enhancements. The climax of the zone came in the main power core facility. Here, a massive generator boss pulsed with red energy, defended by waves of elite corrupted engineers. The fight demanded everything, constant movement across collapsing platforms, redirecting energy orbs with the net launcher, carving through defenders with the slinger, and precise blaster shots to overload cooling vents. The generator's death throes sent a blackout ripple through the entire industrial zone, silencing the machines in a beautiful cascade of failing systems and falling debris. As Squidward emerged from the final building, the industrial zone lay in ruins behind him. Smokestacks toppled, conveyor belts stilled. The constant mechanical hum was gone, replaced by the sweet sound of creaking metal and distant fires. The red mist surged triumphantly, spreading toward Glove World in the distance. Squidward's power had grown substantially, his body felt more attuned to the abyss, his mind sharper, his rage more focused into artistic destruction. Yet the hollowness endured, a quiet motif beneath the victory. The factories of progress were silenced, but the carnival of false joy still beckoned. Mori remained to erase before the bargain reached its crescendo. Squidward tested his enhanced net launcher on a lingering drone, reducing it to scrap in one elegant redirection. He moved forward, the silence expanding like a canvas, awaiting its final bloody masterpiece. Chapter 8: Glove World Carnival of Broken Joy. Squidward Q tentacles left the ruined industrial zone behind him, the distant groan of collapsing smokestacks fading into the red mist like a dying mechanical dirge. His tentacles ached with exertion, but the power surging through him from the entity's bargain felt stronger than ever. SpongeBob's grotesque end in the pineapple had been the spark of personal vengeance. Patrick's bloated collapse had silenced the enabler. The Krusty Krab had toppled greed. Bargain Mart had emptied mindless hunger. Jellyfish Fields had quieted nature's buzzing betrayal. The industrial zone had broken the machines of progress. Now the ancient abyssal voice coiled tighter in his mind, a mocking carnival calliope twisted into dissonance. False joy kept their laughter alive. Shatter the carnival, silence the rides of delusion. The path ahead curved toward Glove World, Bikini Bottom's once beloved amusement park. Its towering entrance arch, shaped like an oversized glove, now sagged under layers of pulsing red veins. The colorful banners were torn and blood-stained. Distant screams mixed with warped carnival music, cheerful melodies slowed and distorted into nightmarish loops. The air smelled of cotton candy rot, popcorn grease, and fresh terror. Squidward stepped through the broken turnstiles, his upgraded arsenal ready, barnacle blaster, hash slinger, and jellyfish net launcher humming with abyssal energy. "Let's see how fun this place really is," he rasped, his voice a bitter clarinet note cutting through the music. The park unfolded as a labyrinth of corrupted wonder. The main pathway was lined with game booths whose prizes, giant stuffed animals, now twitched with unnatural life, their button eyes glowing red. Roller coasters derailed mid-loop, cars crashing into spike-lined pits below. Ferris wheels spun erratically, flinging flaming debris. Haunted house attractions bled real horror from their doors. The red mist hung thick here, turning pastel colors into sickly shades and amplifying every sound into mockery. The first wave attacked near the ring toss booth. Corrupted families, fish parents and children fused into grotesque units, shambled forward, wielding oversized mallets from strength games and throwing explosive plush toys. "Win a prize, win death," they chanted in broken, childlike voices. Squidward raised the jellyfish net launcher and captured a cluster of floating balloon drones corrupted into explosive sentries. He redirected them straight into the family group, causing a chain of colorful but deadly blasts. Plush stuffing and ichor flew in all directions. He followed with barnacle blaster shots, the buckshot tearing through a father figure mid-charge. The hash slinger revved as stragglers closed in, its spinning blade carving through rubbery flesh and cheap fabric costumes. He moved deeper into the park with tactical grace, using game booths as cover and the tilted pathways for elevation. Flashbacks flooded him relentlessly. He remembered the one time SpongeBob had dragged him here for team bonding, the endless lines, Patrick's loud excitement at every ride, the carnival music that drilled into his skull for hours. "You called this joy?" Squidward growled, blasting apart a group near the duck-shooting gallery. "Now it becomes my masterpiece of misery." A secret rewarded his exploration behind a collapsed strength test booth. Smashing the high-striker hammer mechanism revealed a hidden panel containing fresh ammunition, mist-infused candy apples that restored vitality, and a new rune that enhanced his auditory perception, allowing him to hear enemy movements through the distorted music. The entity's whisper carried cruel amusement. The carnival laughs last, but not for long. The mid-park area presented greater horrors. The massive Ferris wheels spun wildly, its cars occasionally detaching and crashing down as flaming projectiles. Corrupted ride operators with elongated limbs operated the chaos, summoning waves of animatronic mascots that had come alive, giant glove-shaped creatures with jagged teeth and ticket claws. Squidward used the net launcher to redirect the falling cars into enemy clusters, creating spectacular crashes that cleared wide sections of the plaza. In the central carnival square, a major horde event erupted. Over 50 corrupted park-goers and possessed attractions converged. Families on motorized bumper cars fused with mist energy, ring toss operators hurling explosive rings, and swarms of balloon animals that homed in like living missiles. Squidward climbed the scaffolding of a nearby game booth for height advantage, orchestrating destruction from above. Nets captured balloon swarms and redirected them into bumper cars, causing chain collisions. Blaster fire popped groups at range, while the hash slinger handled anything that scaled the structure. The red mist projected vivid, painful memories during the chaos. He saw SpongeBob winning a cheap jellyfishing net at one of these booths and immediately using it on him as a joke. Patrick devouring funnel cake so loudly it drowned out everything else. The constant screams of delight that had made his head throb. Each recollection sharpened his aim and deepened his fury. Your joy was always my torment. He roared, unleashing a devastating combo that left the square slick with blood and shredded prizes. A sub-boss emerged near the roller coaster entrance. The coaster conductor, a towering fish fused with the ride's controls. His body was wrapped in track segments, arms ending in massive chain lifts that whipped like flails. The boss summoned derailing coaster cars as attacks and created shockwaves by slamming the ground. Squidward danced across the tilted tracks and platforms, using the net launcher to redirect the boss's own cars back at him. The hash slinger carved through exposed track joints during vulnerability windows. After a fierce, rhythmic battle filled with near misses and explosive debris, he delivered the killing blow by overloading the conductor's core with a redirected super swarm, causing a spectacular derailment that collapsed part of the coaster. Deeper into Glove World, the attractions grew more nightmarish. The Tunnel of Love had become a river of blood where corrupted couples attacked from boats. The funhouse mirrored distorted versions of Squidward's own tormented face, spawning clones that mimicked his movements. He cleared these sections with growing artistry, the weapons feeling like extensions of his long-suppressed creative soul, each a deliberate brushstroke on a canvas of chaos. A grand secret awaited in the prize warehouse behind the main arcade. Blasting open, a reinforced jackpot machine revealed the chapter's greatest reward, a fully upgraded sonic clarinet, an evolution of his beloved instrument now capable of firing devastating dissonant sound waves that shattered groups and stunned tougher foes. Squidward grasped it reverently, feeling a twisted connection to his lost art. The entity's power surged once more, your music returns as destruction. The climax of Glove World centered on the Grand Carousel of Doom, a massive spinning platform where corrupted mascot animatronics rode giant sea creatures in endless circles. At its center stood the Ringmaster boss, a grotesque amalgamation of park mascots fused around a giant golden glove. Its attacks included spinning ticket barrages, summoning ride-based minions, and a grand finale whirl that created a vortex pulling everything inward. Squidward fought with everything he had accumulated. He used the sonic clarinet's waves to disrupt the spin, the net launcher to redirect minions, and his full arsenal in fluid switches. The battle was a whirlwind of motion and sound, carnival music clashing with his dissonant blasts. Flashbacks peaked here, the one happy day at Glove World that had ended with SpongeBob and Patrick forcing him onto every ride until he was sick. This was never joy, he screamed. It was another cage. After an exhausting, exhilarating fight, Squidward landed the final blow. The Ringmaster exploded in a shower of golden fragments and red mist that flowed into him. The entire park began to collapse, rides grinding to halts, structures crumbling in beautiful slow motion. Glove World fell silent, twisted laughter faded, the false joy of Bikini Bottom lay in ruins. Squidward stood at the park's exit, breathing heavily amid the wreckage. The red mist celebrated wildly, spreading toward downtown Bikini Bottom. His power had reached new heights. The sonic clarinet felt like a true homecoming, his art reborn in vengeance. Yet the familiar hollowness lingered, deeper now. The carnival was shattered, but the town's heart still beat corrupted life. The final stages awaited. The bargain approached its crescendo. Squidward played a single, triumphant dissonant note on the sonic clarinet. It echoed across the ruined park like a promise. The massacre continued, ride by shattered ride. Chapter 9, The Trench Watch Military Base Bloodbath Reckoning. Squidward Q tentacles marched away from the collapsing ruins of Glove World, the sonic clarinet slung across his back like a vengeful relic of his former self. The red mist roared around him in triumphant spirals, thicker and more sentient than ever after the carnival's shattering. SpongeBob's button-eyed death had ignited everything. Patrick's gluttonous end had crushed innocence's lie. The Krusty Krab had bled greed dry. Bargain Mart had silenced consumption. Jellyfish Fields had electrocuted nature's betrayal. The industrial zone had rusted progress. Glove World had broken false joy. Now the abyssal entity's voice thundered in his skull like war drums fused with a clarinet's screech. They built defenses against the unknown, against the trench, against me. Flood their bastion with blood. Search every corner. Leave no soldier standing. The path from the ruined amusement park twisted toward the outskirts of Bikini Bottom, where a fortified complex had always loomed in the background of town life, the Trench Watch Military Base. Squidward had rarely paid it mind during his old, miserable existence, viewing it as yet another bureaucratic annoyance that occasionally rattled windows with training exercises. Now, under the spreading red mist, it stood as the final organized bastion of resistance, a symbol of the town's pathetic attempt at order and protection. He would turn it into an abattoir. The base's perimeter fence, topped with razor-sharp coral spikes, had already begun to corrode under the mist's influence. Searchlights swept erratically, their beams cutting bloody paths through the fog. Guard towers loomed like skeletal fingers. The main gate hung twisted off its hinges, evidence that the corruption had already breached the outer defenses. Distant gunfire and screams echoed from within, the last desperate stands of Bikini Bottom's military. Squidward stepped through the broken gate, weapons ready. Let's see how well your training holds against true rage. The bloodbath began the moment he entered the outer courtyard. Dozens of zombified soldiers, fish in tattered fatigues, helmets fused to skulls by red veins, poured from barracks doors. They carried standard-issue harpoon rifles that fired corrosive bolts and bayonets glowing with mist energy. Defend the trench, eliminate the intruder, they barked in disciplined but broken voices. Squidward unleashed the jellyfish net launcher first, capturing a squad of airborne drone scouts and redirecting their explosive payloads straight into the charging line. The resulting chain detonations painted the courtyard sand red, limbs and helmets flying in arcs. He switched to the barnacle blaster, its thunderous buckshot tearing through a second wave with satisfying gore sprays. The hash slinger revved as soldiers closed the distance, its spinning blade carving through body armor and flesh alike in wet, artistic strokes. Blue and yellow blood mixed in puddles that reflected the red sky above. He moved like a conductor of carnage, using overturned supply crates and sandbag barriers for cover while advancing. The base's layout was a maze of interconnected zones, training grounds, armories, command centers, and underground bunkers. Every section became a slaughterhouse. Main training yard, a massive horde assembled, over 100 corrupted troops supported by automated turrets that spat streams of mist-laced bullets. Squidward climbed a watchtower ladder, the sonic clarinet now singing in his tentacles. He unleashed wide dissonant waves that shattered armor and stunned entire squads, leaving them vulnerable to follow-up blaster fire. Nets redirected turret projectiles back into their operators. The hash slinger carved through any who scaled the tower after him. The yard transformed into a literal bloodbath. Sand turned to crimson mud, bodies piled in grotesque heaps, the air thick with the coppery stench of death and the screams of the dying. Flashbacks fueled his fury as the slaughter intensified. He remembered the base's occasional drills that had rattled his Tiki Hut windows at dawn, destroying precious sleep. The time SpongeBob had enthusiastically joined a Civilian Defense Day event, dragging Patrick along and turning the whole affair into a chaotic circus that blocked traffic for hours. The military's rigid order had always represented another cage: rules, noise, interruptions disguised as duty. Your protection was always an illusion, Squidward roared, blasting a sergeant's head clean off. You couldn't even protect yourselves from me. A secret cache revealed itself after clearing the yard. Inside a collapsed armory bunker, Squidward found a reinforced weapons locker containing high-explosive harpoon rounds for the barnacle blaster, mist-infused adrenaline injectors that boosted his speed further, and a powerful rune that allowed temporary mist-form teleportation between shadows. The entity's voice laughed darkly. Their weapons served the bargain now. The bloodbath escalated in the central command hub, a multi-level building filled with tactical rooms and communication arrays. Corrupted officers coordinated desperate defenses from elevated platforms, barking orders that summoned reinforcements. Squidward teleported through shadows using his new ability, appearing behind lines to unleash point-blank slinger carnage. Blood sprayed across strategy tables and maps of Bikini Bottom. He shattered communication consoles with sonic clarinet blasts, silencing their calls for help in bursts of static and sparks. One particularly brutal sequence unfolded in the mess hall, now a slaughter arena. Long tables ran with spilled rations mixed with entrails. Hundreds of soldiers had barricaded themselves here. Squidward turned the environment against them, redirecting explosive barrels with nets, using the slinger to carve through overturned tables used as cover and blasting chandeliers down onto crowds. The room became a churning sea of blood and gore, floors so slick he occasionally slid between kills for momentum. His laughter mixed with the screams, a deranged symphony. Deeper underground, the bunker levels revealed the base's darkest secrets. Biolabs where scientists had experimented with trench artifacts, now corrupted into monstrous hybrids. Squidward fought through these sterile halls turned abattoirs, scientists with tentacle grafts attacking alongside security teams. The blood flowed thicker here, coating white walls in dripping crimson. He discovered logs revealing the base had detected the red mist's approach, but dismissed it as mass hysteria. Their arrogance only made the kills sweeter. A major boss encounter awaited in the primary command bunker. Colonel Triton, a massively augmented soldier fused with ancient trench armor. His attacks included missile barrages from shoulder launchers, a massive harpoon chain whip, and a last stand mode that summoned elite ghost squads. The fight was a relentless blood-soaked ballet across the bunker's multi-tiered command center. Squidward teleported between platforms, redirected missiles with nets, shattered armor with sonic clarinet waves, and carved exposed weak points with the hash slinger. Colonel Triton's final roar echoed as his body was torn apart in a spectacular explosion of armor shards and mist. With the command structure decapitated, the remaining forces broke. Squidward hunted the stragglers through maintenance tunnels and vehicle bays in a final, exhaustive bloodbath. Tanks sat abandoned, their crews dragged out and slaughtered. Helicopters, adapted for underwater use, burned in hangars. Every room, every corridor, every corner became another verse in the massacre. By the time Squidward emerged from the base's rear exit, the entire Trench Watch military base was a silent tomb of blood and broken defenses. Bodies numbered in the hundreds, piled in courtyards, draped over railings, floating in flooded bunkers. Rivers of red flowed through drainage grates. The once proud bastion of order had been reduced to nothing but gore and quiet. The red mist celebrated with a violent surge, spreading aggressively toward downtown Bikini Bottom. Squidward's power had reached terrifying new heights. His body felt almost ethereal, his mind a perfect vessel for the abyss. Yet the hollowness gnawed deeper than ever. The military's fall was satisfying, but the town's core still pulsed with lingering life. The fancy sand tower and final confrontation awaited. Squidward wiped blue blood from his face, reloaded his weapons, and stepped forward. The search was complete. The bloodbath had been glorious. The endgame beckoned. Chapter 10, The Final Annihilation, Death, Fire, and Hell's Reckoning. Squidward Q tentacles emerged from the blood-soaked wreckage of the Trench Watch military base, his body a ruined canvas of gore and exhaustion. Blue blood seeped from dozens of deep wounds, mingling with the yellow ichor of his countless victims. The red mist clung to him like a shroud of victory and inevitable betrayal, thicker and more possessive than ever. Every step of his rampage had built to this moment. SpongeBob's grotesque button-eyed death in the collapsing pineapple had ignited the personal spark. Patrick's bloated, whimpering collapse had silenced the brainless enabler. The Krusty Krab had bled Mr. Krabs, greed dry in his own vault. Bargain Mart had emptied the aisles of hollow consumption. jellyfish fields had electrocuted nature's buzzing betrayal. The industrial zone had rusted the engines of pointless progress. Glove World had shattered the carnival of false joy. The military base had drowned the last organized resistance in rivers of blood. Now only the corrupted heart of Bikini Bottom remained, and Squidward understood the true price of the bargain. The silence he craved would claim him too. The entity's voice thundered through his mind like crashing abyssal waves. Plant the seeds of oblivion. Climb the tower. Unleash the fire. The silence you seek will consume you with the town. That was always the final clause. Squidward did not hesitate. Power still surged through his battered tentacles as he marched toward downtown Bikini Bottom, weapons heavy in his grasp. The barnacle blaster, hash slinger, jellyfish net launcher, and sonic clarinet. The city center was a maelstrom of final desperation. Skyscrapers leaned at drunken angles, windows shattered and leaking crimson fluid. Streets clogged with shambling hordes of civilians fused with elite soldiers who had fled the base. The fancy sand tower rose at the center like a defiant spire, pulsing with unstable, corrupted energy. He waded into the main boulevard without mercy. Hundreds converged upon him. The sonic clarinet unleashed wide, dissonant waves that ruptured organs and shattered glass in cascading destruction. The jellyfish net launcher captured swarms of drone reinforcements and redirected them into ground troops, creating spectacular chains of explosive death. The barnacle blaster roared continuously, buckshot carving bloody lanes through the masses. The hash slinger sang its revving song in close quarters, slicing through armor and flesh in sweeping artistic arcs. Blood flowed in literal rivers down the storm drains. Bodies piled into grotesque barricades that he used for cover as he advanced methodically. Teleporting through shadows with the military rune, Squidward planted high-explosive charges scavenged from the base at every critical structural point, beneath major intersections, against building foundations, and along the supports of the fancy sand tower itself. Each placement was deliberate, a final composition of annihilation. Flashbacks assaulted him relentlessly, SpongeBob's parades blocking the streets, Patrick's snores vibrating through walls, Mr. Krabs' greedy rallies. All of it, he whispered between kills, voice raw, ends now. The ascent of the tower was a vertical bloodbath. Elite remnants guarded every floor. Squidward carved through them with unrelenting fury. Offices turned into slaughter rooms, conference halls painted crimson, observation decks littered with corpses. His wounds multiplied, but the mist kept him moving just enough to reach the pinnacle. At the top observation deck, the tower overlord awaited, a towering abomination fused from military command and civilian leaders, armored in trench relics and pulsing red cores. Its attacks were cataclysmic, city-shaking shockwaves, spectral summons, and a devastating energy beam. Squidward fought with everything left in him, teleporting between platforms, redirecting horrors with nets, shattering armor with clarinet waves, and carving with the slinger. With a final empowered strike, he destroyed the central core. The creature exploded in a burst of red energy that flowed into him one last time. Squidward stood alone at the absolute summit, overlooking the ruined city. He accessed the Doomsday Console, the military's secret nuclear protocol for trench-level threats, now fully corrupted to his will. The entity roared its final command: complete the bargain. Memories flooded him in one overwhelming montage: every good morning, Squidward, every interrupted clarinet note, every ruined painting, every forced smile. The hollowness inside him yawned absolute. He triggered the sequence. The first detonations bloomed like crimson suns across downtown. Shockwaves rippled outward in apocalyptic fury. Buildings vaporized instantly. The Krusty Krab, Patrick's Rock, the Pineapple Ruins, Conch Street, Jellyfish Fields, Glove World, the Industrial Zone, and the military base all disappeared into expanding spheres of fire and oblivion. The sea boiled violently. Mushroom clouds rose and merged into one blinding storm of annihilation. The shockwave raced toward the tower. The structure shook violently, cracking apart beneath Squidward's tentacles. Intense heat washed over him, searing flesh from bone. The sonic clarinet slipped from his grasp as the deck gave way. He did not scream. He embraced the fire. Squidward Q tentacles died with his town, consumed in the glorious nuclear inferno he had unleashed. Bikini Bottom was erased, reduced to a glowing crater on the sea floor, ash and red mist drifting silently over the wasteland. But the bargain was not yet finished. Squidward awoke on a jagged shore of black volcanic sand, the sea around him a boiling lake of crimson shadow. The sky swirled with red mist and distant screaming stars. Twisted coral spires rose like broken bones from the ground. Warped phantom ruins of Bikini Bottom landmarks floated in the haze, shattered pineapple, cracked rock, melted crusty crab. This was the entity's true domain, a personalized hell forged from his suffering and revenge. His body felt strangely whole, yet hollow. The red mist whispered around him, "You delivered silence to the town. Now face the loudest voice once more, in eternal reckoning." From the crimson lake rose a grotesque abomination. SpongeBob SquarePants, massively corrupted and demonic, his yellow porous flesh stretched and bloated into a towering horror. 4 glowing red hearts pulsed visibly within his distorted body, one in the center of his chest, the others somehow separated, yet connected by throbbing mist veins. Button eyes sewn crudely into his face, limbs elongated like rubbery tentacles ending in jagged claws. His smile split impossibly wide, revealing rows of sharpened teeth. "Squidward," the creature shrieked in a layered voice of false innocence and abyssal malice. "I'm ready, ready to play forever." Before Squidward could react, 3 new figures rose from the sand around SpongeBob, Squidward-looking abominations. Each was a twisted mirror of himself, elongated tentacles fused with coral spikes, faces distorted into permanent screams of rage, bodies armored in red mist. One held SpongeBob's first heart embedded in its chest, pulsing with stolen life. The second abomination clutched the second heart. The third held the third. SpongeBob retained the fourth in his central core. The 4 hearts beat in unnatural synchronization, linking the 4 abominations into a single monstrous entity. The hell fight erupted across the black shore and floating ruins. The 3 Squidward abominations charged first, moving with distorted versions of his own precision, one wielding a spectral barnacle blaster that fired searing red buckshot, another swinging a corrupted hash slinger, the third launching jellyfish nets of pure shadow. SpongeBob bounced on elastic legs behind them, hurling massive corrosive bubbles that homed like guided missiles and flinging electrified jelly nets. The ground bubbled with acidic pineapple ichor, and robotic duplicates of both SpongeBob and Squidward spawned from the mist, chattering broken phrases. Squidward, armed with spectral manifestations of his full arsenal granted by the hellscape, fought with final, desperate catharsis. He dodged the abominations, attacks with shadow teleports, redirecting SpongeBob's bubbles back at the Squidward horrors using the net launcher. The sonic clarinet unleashed dissonant waves that shattered duplicates and stunned the abominations momentarily. "You destroyed everything," he roared, the hash slinger carving deep gashes into the first Squidward abomination. Yellow-tainted ichor sprayed as he targeted the embedded heart. The battle raged across the hellish arena, leaping between floating phantom landmarks, using Patrick's ruined rock as cover, dodging Gary-like shadow minions that erupted from the sand. The 3 Squidward abominations fought with his own tactical precision, forcing him into a grueling war of mirrors. One pinned him with blaster fire, while another closed with the slinger. SpongeBob's stretching limbs slammed him into coral spires, corrosive bubbles burning his flesh. "Why wouldn't you just be happy, neighbor?" the abomination taunted, voice echoing with old memories. "I only wanted us to smile forever." Flashbacks and hellish visions fueled the chaos. Squidward relived every torment as he targeted the hearts. He destroyed the first heart in the nearest Squidward abomination with a sustained clarinet dirge, causing the creature to convulse and dissolve into mist. The second fell after a brutal exchange of slinger blows and net redirects. The third required a desperate teleport inside its guard, driving the spectral blade directly into the pulsing organ. With 3 hearts destroyed, SpongeBob's form grew more monstrous, the final heart in his chest glowing brighter and fueling desperate attacks. The arena quaked with seismic laughter and stretching punches. The ground split, releasing waves of acidic ichor, duplicates multiplied. Squidward pressed the final assault. He teleported through the chaos, dodging the last heart's empowered beams, and drove the hash slinger deep into SpongeBob's central core, while unleashing a full-powered sonic clarinet blast directly into the fourth heart. The abomination convulsed violently. "I'm ready to," the demonic smile faltered. The body exploded in a massive vortex of red mist, yellow scraps, and shattering hearts. The hellscape trembled and began to fade. The entity's laughter echoed faintly, satisfied yet distant. Squidward collapsed onto the black sand as the red mist receded. The hollowness inside him finally filled with absolute, perfect quiet. No more neighbors, no more laughter, no more SpongeBob. Eternal silence claimed him at last, a hollow, hard-won peace earned in blood, nuclear fire, and final hellish reckoning. Bikini Bottom was gone, Squidward was gone, only the abyss remained. The end.